Looking to improve your squad on Ultimate Team? Visit IGGM.com for safe and reliable coins with the link in the description. Use my promo code NA to get 5% off. What's up, y'all? For this video, we're going to be talking about the 4-4-2. The 4-4-2 is a really popular formation, and rightfully so because it's one of the better formations in the game as well. It's really easy to use, its setup is pretty familiar for most players in this game, and it's one of my favorite formations that have two strikers on them. If you've been struggling to find custom tactics that work with you or for you, then more often than not, the 4-4-2 is one of those formations that is never going to let you down. It might not be endgame like a 4-5-1 or a 4-1-4-1, but if you need something that's really simple, if you just need something that uses these corresponding positions, then the 4-4-2 is going to be really good for you. And as you can see, this is my team right here. It's really important that, like with any other custom tactic or with any other setup, you always want a team that has the highest possible pace. Your left and right wing or midfielders, make sure they have a ton of pace as well because they're going to be bombing down the touchline. So you're going to want someone that can beat their fullback more often than not. Their shooting doesn't matter too much. It's more so this formation is built around using your strikers up front as goal threats. So just make sure your wingers have good pace and good dribbling and passing as well. You're going to need one CDM card, obviously not a literal CDM, but a card that works in CDM. Or works as a CDM, so if you can trust them to play as a CDM, then you're going to need that. And then you're going to want one player that's good in attack and midfield. So I have Caicedo and Iwobi. Caicedo stays back, Iwobi goes up. Have a setup similar to that. You're going to want a player that stays back, you're going to want one that goes forward. And then up front, Son and Griezmann is what I'm working with. Griezmann has false 9++. Really good that he has it because it's AI and false 9. False 9 collectively has really good AI, so if you have Griezmann, use him. If you don't, I suggest you buy him because he's crazy in game. And hopefully I don't have to speak about how good Son is either because his finesse shots are different. But yeah, other than that, we can talk about the tactics. Let me just rename that real quick before I make a mistake like that. But yeah, that's that. You can see the code top left right there. And then you can see the whiff ball setup right here. Using counter build-up style mainly because counter is what really activates the runs in behind. If you played FIFA last year, if you played FC25 and you played a lot with direct passing, counter is basically just direct passing. There's not a big difference. It triggers the same sort of AI. It's a little different, I've noticed, but for the most part, if you really like direct passing, you're going to like counter as well. Defensive approach high, but make sure it's 61. Guys, when you type in the code, it might not set to 61. That's because the code system in this game does not include the actual number for the defensive approach. Notice how it says high. The default for high is going to be 70, so when you put the code in, it's going to type in 70, but make sure you change it down to 61. I said this in my previous video, but the biggest difference with 61 is the fact that you get the benefit of having that automatic offside trap while still not having to worry about the AI. You're still obviously going to have to worry about it a little bit because the game's not going to do it for you all the time, but there's still the issue that when you play a high line or you play with high defensive approach, the other team strikers are going to be able to make runs in behind and your center backs aren't going to be able to track it as effectively. Putting it at 61 brings you as close as possible to balanced, where in balanced the defenders track back the runs as frequently as possible, but they don't have a high line, so that's a whole other issue in itself. So yeah, 61 is perfect. You get the benefits of both high and balance while still prioritizing that high line. And as you can see with the instructions up front, you got your two strikers up front and their link up is going to be so good, guys. Keep in mind the false 9 right here. You might be wondering about how good his AI is. And at the end of the day, he's still a striker. He's still going to make runs in behind, but he's only going to do it when there's a ton of space for him to do so. For the most part, he's going to be dropping deep, short for the ball. That way the wingers that you can see on the side have him to pass to. I experimented with having 2 on advanced forward, and having 2 on advanced forward is still pretty useful, but I noticed oftentimes that when I have him on false 9, it enables this player to basically act as a solo striker when this player comes short. So when this player comes short, sometimes he takes a defender with him, and that can cause like a little gap in the defensive line for this player to make a run in behind, or even for the wings to make a run behind. And now that we mentioned the other striker right here, advanced forward is really important, because advanced forward allows the striker to make more dynamic runs. That's the difference between this and poacher, where poacher, they hold a really strict AI. They stick to making runs in behind, and those runs are going to be really a straight line. This can be good on the counter attack, but with a formation like this that has a lot of dynamic movement, you're going to want advanced forward because that's what enables that type of movement as consistently as possible. Your two wingers, Notice how they're on inside forward balanced. In my previous custom tactics, I try to use inside forward attacking more often than not because that's what enables them to position themselves conveniently in between the other team's fullback and center back as soon as you get the ball back. And the main reason why we're not doing that now is the fact that you can't effectively have these players on balance while still having these two strikers up front. And the reason why I say that is because, to be as simple as possible, when you put inside forward attack, it makes those players primarily focus on scoring goals. But the issue is you can't have 4 players all primarily focus on scoring goals. You're going to need a player that's able to set them up. You're going to need a player that's able to come short for the ball and open up spaces in the middle of the pitch before you can talk about, chances inside the box. So inside forward balance almost turns them into cams rather than actual strikers. And when you only have 2 midfielders, then you're going to need players that are coming short for the ball and giving you passing options. You can't just have 4 players making runs. That's going to cause you too many issues when you're put in situations where you have to build up. So yeah, for custom tactics like these, it's really important that you have them on balance instead of attacking. Now, attacking is still going to be effective if you're getting counterattacks, but if you're a player that needs to break down your opponent, then having them on attack is going to force you to make too many through balls, and when you're playing against a good defender, that's going to be too difficult. Now you're going to have your 2 midfielders, playmaker roaming and holding defend. And guys, I really like playmaker roaming because when you're in a situation where you have enough midfield, then you can always afford to have a playmaker on roaming. And the playmaker roaming, the one con to this is the fact that when you lose the ball, this guy can be literally anywhere. Now that's a good thing and a bad thing because when he's literally anywhere, it means that you're basically trusting the AI to try to find where he can be well positioned to help the team in attack. Now, oftentimes he might go out wide, oftentimes he might come short for the ball, oftentimes he might make a run, but the whole point is that he's really dynamic. He's going to be anywhere in the final third for the sake of making sure that you always have an option. And it also just makes you unpredictable. But at the same time, that's a con because if you lose the ball, this guy can be literally anywhere. But we remedy this with the fact that we have a holding CDM or a center mid. Now, in my other videos, I tend to use a deep lying playmaker because a deep lying playmaker is basically the difference between deep lying playmaker and holding is the fact that a deep lying playmaker is always in attack, is always positioned itself to sit somewhere where they can enable another player to pass to. And what I mean by that is with deep lying playmaker, they're not going to hide behind other players or something like that. They're going to be playing somewhere, they're going to be standing somewhere or making a run somewhere that is going to enable them to pass to someone else. So when you pass to a deep lying playmaker, oftentimes you're going to be able to pass to someone else. There's always going to be someone else that's open. It's a really dynamic AI. The issue with holding is the fact that holding is not going to have that in mind. Holding is going to prioritize sitting somewhere that protects the team on the counterattack. Now, obviously, it's each to their own. You want a player that's sitting back and thinking about defense, but it's important that you have that balance, And for me, we were able to afford that balance by having him on holding while having a playmaker on roaming. And then with that being said, you got your defenders. Now, for this custom tactic, I use fullback balanced. And if you've used my previous custom tactics where I had it on fullback defend, and if you liked fullback defend, you can absolutely stick to fullback defend. You can do this. However, me personally, I want to go back to balance because I found that balance, they hug the touchline more, obviously, but with balance, when we're building up from the back, we're able to just pass these players out wide, and then these players can send that through ball or that ball to the left mid and the right mid. A lot of attacks are generated through those wider positions of the pitch. And that's important because, like I said in the previous video, the meta in this formation is 3 center mid formations. So the 4-5-1, the 4-3-3, all of those type of formations. And that's mostly because the build up on those is way easier through the middle. And when you have 2 center mids, there's only so much you can do with build up because more often than not, you're going to be outnumbered in the middle. So having the fullbacks on balance is basically the most conservative option that you have to having passing lanes out wide, where you can pass the ball to that winger right here. And basically, if you want it to be a rat, basically, you can just through ball it over and over again. One pass, things like that. You can have a lot of options to that. And then your center backs always going to be on defender defend. I've experimented with balanced. I've experimented with stopper. I've experimented with ball playing defender. Stopper is horrible. I don't even know why they added it to the game because it quite literally just ruins your defensive AI. Ball playing defender is usable, but again, your players are going to be out of position if you lose the ball too early, and if you're conceding on average like a goal a game just because your center back was out of position trying to build up, then it's really not worth it. And defender defend, that's really all you need. There's defender balanced, but again, all this does is enable the possibility of opening gaps in defense. And Although that does, increase the possibility of winning the ball back early when you lose the ball, we're already able to do that with other techniques. So defender bounce, or sorry, defender defend is all you need. And then goalkeeper, it's your personal choice. One thing I really like about these custom tactics is the false 9, and the false 9 is really good. If you've used custom tactics that use a shadow striker as a cam, then think of the false 9 to be basically just like that. But since he's not sitting behind a striker, which is what a shadow striker normally does, it's going to be completely different. And like I said, I encourage people in my previous videos all the time, if you want to personally use 2 advanced forwards, you absolutely can. This formation does have that compatibility, and what I mean by that is you're able to put 2 advanced forwards and still have success. It won't break the custom tactic. I played with 2 advanced forwards, but just personally, having a false 9 enables so much better movement for your 2 strikers because it allows them to basically interchange, and it allows more dynamic movement to begin with. It makes every attack look different, and personally I like that more. But I can't stress more how important it is to have the 2 inside forwards on balance, because you can't have all 4 players crash in the box. It seems like a good idea, but if you've used custom tactics before where you get to like that midfield area and you just can't find anyone to pass to, it's likely because of things like that, because you need players on the pitch that are instructed to come short for the ball and take the ball to their feet. And that's really sensitive with a formation like this that only has 2 central midfielders, because like I said earlier, you're going to be going against people that have 3 midfielders, 3 center midfielders to be specific. Sometimes 2 of them are going to be defensive midfielders, so you need players that can break that down rather than players that can just make runs in behind over and over again. You got to get that perfect balance in between. But yeah, other than that, the 4-4-2 so far is definitely top 5 in the game. Personally, I think the best formation in the game is probably the 4-5-1, but I think people like the 4-1-4-1 more. Personally, I like my 4-5-1 more, but I've gotten better reception